Today we are meeting when the worship of Divine Mother is going on all over the world by the faithfuls. Today is very auspicious day of Shashti, where Mother Durga formally comes to the homes in Bengal. And Navratri progresses in the 6th day in other parts of the people in other parts of India where Hindus worship Divine Mother as Durga. While in India, all over the world, wherever Hindus are there, for them Divine Mother is worshipped as Mother Durga during this period. This was not originally Durga Puja time. Durga Puja used to be in summertime. So when Ramachandra went to fight with Ravana, God Rama went to fight with demon Ravana, then the battle was very hard to win even for God. He had to seek the blessing of Divine Mother. But that was not the time to do worship. Divine Mother is to be done in the month of Chaitra, in the month of summertime. But Rama said, without Mother's grace, he will not be able to conquer the evil toward Ravana. So he worshipped Durga untimely, it was not the time. And after him, it is called untimely Durga Puja, or Akala Bodhana, not on the time that what traditionally used to be worshipped. Now this has become the tradition of worship of Durga Puja. It has become more popular throughout the world after the worship of Sri Rama. As we just heard from the reading how Holy Mother went to a devotee's house when he had a great yearning for her presence. So we believe that Divine Mother visits our homes where we adore Him through our worship, our hearts when we seek her presence. Divine Mother can visit in any form of Durga, Kali, Holy Mother, Mother Mary, whatever form of Divine Mother you see, she is sure to visit if we have real want, real desire to have her. That is the faith which has been corroborated by the experience of the people in the past, as we just read from the life of Girish Ghosh. Now, we have to discuss today about the worship of Divine Mother. So what is Divine Mother? First come that, then we'll come to worship. Divine Mother is the Mother of the universe, the God in the form of Mother. Why Mother? Mother has 3 main characteristics. Every mother, even our earthly mother. Number one, she gives birth, she creates. Number 2, she nourishes by giving food, milk, when little we grow food, later little education, all these come as nourishment. The third, Mother protects. She protects us from danger. A small boy, if he or she is afraid, when you go to him or her, approach him or her, she is little afraid of unknown person. Where does she run? Well, he runs. They will run to Mother, crying Mother, for protection. So that is Divine Mother, who is our source of our existence. We exist, we come to earth, we come to this world because of the Divine Mother. We are nourished by the Divine Mother, we are protected by the Divine Mother. So when we worship her, we want in all things. We want to be freed of the fear aspect of life. We want protection to be nourished, nourishment also. We are afraid that if we are not nourished, if we have some situation, undergo some situation where we find difficult to sustain in life, where do we turn? We turn to Divine Mother. So So Divine Mother is that aspect. In fact, God has all the qualities. Whoever worships God is that. Divine Mother, God as Divine Mother has a very broad aspect. It is said that God is one with Bhagavata Bhakta Bhagavan. Where is God to be found? God is to be found in Bhagavata, Bhakta and Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the deity whom we worship either through image or picture or through meditation in your heart or through idea in your mind. That is Bhagavan, Lord, God. And Bhagavata is the scripture where it mentions the stories about God, where God's life history is mentioned, where glories of God are described. That is Bhagavata, the scriptures. And what is Bhakta? Bhakta is one who adores God. What is the quality of Bhakta? Bhakta has to be a very good person. One who is devotee of God is a good person, honest person, moral person, all these qualities. So, God is worshipped in these three. That is generally the worshipping God. God is seen in the bhaktas. But when we worship Divine Mother, it is beyond that. Bhakta, good, nice, every happy situation, good scenery, they all reminds of us God. But when we are worshippers of Divine Mother, we have to transcend that. Even going beyond just only good, just only right, divine, this whole creation, a mixture of good and evil, is the creation of Divine Mother. The light of sun shines on good place as well as dirty place. So, sun makes no difference. Like the Divine Mother is the mother of all, good as well as evil. So, when we venture to worship Divine Mother, then we have to accept all. We have to go farther and accept good and also as bad as the children of Divine Mother. No exclusion, no segregation, no separateness. Everyone is a child of Divine Mother. Bhakta as well as Bhakta, good as well as evil, are the creation of Mother. We have to see Mother dwelling in the heart of everyone. Then we are able to do the worship of Divine Mother. And that's why Swami Vivekananda often preached that worship the terrible. Be not afraid of difficulties. Be not afraid of death. He says, he who dares to hug the form of death, to him the mother comes. So even death is not something very hateful, something very fearful. Everything is welcome for a person who dares to worship Divine Mother. It's not easy. Let's now come to worship. What really is the worship? We have one idea of worship, that people sit on the place and either they chant some mantra or wave some light or offer some flowers, mutter some mantras, that becomes worship. But that is not the whole of worship. Yes, that is a part of worship. In fact, this worship is a part of spiritual progress. It helps in spirituality. Spirituality is love of God. How will you define spirituality? It can be defined in two ways. Either it is love of God, or search for love of God, or search for the truth or reality. For the people of devotional temperament, who believe in God, who have love in their heart, who wants to offer something to God, who wants to gain something from God. So when there God and I and thou is there, for him there has to be love, has to grow. That is spirituality. Those who think that I want to know who I am, what is the reality, what really is the truth, is there something unchangeable in this changing world? Everything is changing, everything seems to be unreal. So I want to know if there is reality. Those who inquire into the reality, who seek the reality, for them the search for reality or truth is spirituality. Now this devotion of the worship is particularly for the devotees, for bhaktas. To acquire love of God, Mostly people have devotional or temperament, or they all have love in their heart. So 3 things are necessary to acquire love of God for a devotee. What 3 things? Prayer, worship, and meditation. Prayer is, there are many kinds of prayer. The most common prayer is you seek something from higher being called God. You have want in the world, you need some things in the world, and you go to the God whom you think can give everything. He is omnipotent. He has so much power, whatever you ask for Him, He can or she can grant. So prayer is an integral part of spirituality for a Bhakta. And then prayer has also other connotations. When our prayer matures, then when we become more purified in the heart, our wants reduce. We begin to understand that what I seek as a fulfillment is not really the thing that can give me fulfillment. The wants reduce. The value of worldly objects become less important. Then we have less and less of prayer for desiring things. It's called petitional prayer. You ask something from God. You think you don't really need that. Those won't give you the joy that you seek. You won't give you the knowledge of reality that you want to have. So that reduces. But in the beginning, yes, you have to approach God. And prayer is the best means. Prayer, petitional prayer also. I want to gain something from God. Then comes worship. Worship we'll talk in detail. And the last one is meditation. In fact, prayer, if it is done intentionally and intensely, can lead one to meditation. Worship is not needed. Prayer, intense prayer, grand relation with God, forget yourself, bring more and more God into you or into the world through prayer alone. But it is difficult for most of us. We need the intermediate thing called worship. So, what the worship means? Worship means external worship. As we have seen, mostly we know worship by that. We see some priest or some monk or some person sitting in front of the altar, in front of the place, either leading facing the people or leading facing the deity. In Islamic tradition, the priest or the person doesn't face the audience, they face the deity. Or Jewish tradition also like that, they face the deity. But in other traditions, they may face God or they face the people. Like in the Christian tradition, often they face the one priest faces the audience when they guide them in the worship. Hindu tradition, priests generally face the deity. Now, this is external worship. But other than external worship, there are other methods of worship called mental worship. Manasa puja. You visualize the presence of deity in front of you or within you. And then you worship him with all the articles. Whatever a priest does outside, you just visualize him, treat him as your dearest guest, dearest relative, and then you worship with flower, wash his hand, bow down, offer flowers, offer sandal paste, show the lights, offer food, put on garlands, or you just visualize, be in presence of God. Because you have started loving God, being in His presence or her presence, it itself is so joyful. Just in imagination, just visualization. And when we imagine or visualize God, it doesn't remain imagination, it becomes real presence. Because God is present everywhere. God is really present within our heart. God is present, really present in front of me. Divine Mother is present in front of me. Just I cannot see because of my ignorance, because of my lack of knowledge. And when I try to imagine the presence of God and worship, it becomes the real thing, though I imagine. When I imagine something, my brother is supposed there in Los Angeles, and I visualize, sit and visualize, oh, my brother has come, I love him, I shake hands with him. That will be imagination, just imagination. You feel the joy and you feel His presence, but it is just a feeling. But when we think of God, it is real presence. That's why when we visualize God's presence, it gives immense joy compared to the memory or imagination of the presence of our relative, which lives far away, and you seek his presence, and you feel like think that he is beside me or she is beside me. That gives us some joy, some happiness. But the thinking of God, or Manasa Puja, gives us immense joy because it is the real thing. God is really present when you start thinking of Him. God is really present inside us. Another worship is japa. You take the name of God, sit down, just repeat the name of God. Just concentrate on the sound of the God's name. Like there are many prayers, many japa. So whatever Guru has given you, that is the best thing to repeat. That becomes worship. Does nothing, no flower offering, no water. Just sits there and does japa. Just repeats Rama, 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 or Jesus, 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 or whatever mantra God has given. It's the name of same God in different languages, different words. Same one God, one reality, our own real self. That is also worship. And worship also includes saying the glory of God, singing the glory of God. So, like the chanting the names of God, singing hymns, singing bhajans, all that also is part of worship. Reciting holy books, when you recite Gita or read Bible, read loudly or read in mind, that is also worship. Then, at the end, working as a service to the Lord, that is also worship. When you work something and you feel you are serving Lord or Lord's children. Same thing. Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. Bhakta and Bhagavan, no difference. God's children are the places where God is most manifested. One story said, which is the largest? One person said, God is the huge, highest, biggest, nothing is bigger than Him. Another said, no, there is one thing bigger than the Lord, God. What is higher and bigger than God? It says, devotee's heart. Because God resides there. God lives there. So something where one lives has to be bigger. So devotee's heart is even bigger than the Lord Himself. So God's presence is felt in the devotees. When we serve another person, if you are a real worshipper of Divine Mother, you go beyond good and mother. Any person that comes in front of you is the child of Divine Mother, and you work in the spirit of service to Him. You want to give Him joy. That becomes worship of Divine Mother. Human nature is very self-centered. And that's why prayer is very natural. When we go to God and ask for Him to have something, it's very natural. And when we start going to God, Sri Krishna says in the Gita, the one type, there are 4 categories of devotees described. The first category of devotees is Artharthi, Artha, one which is afflicted. Artho, Jigyasu, Artharthi. The first and third, Artha and Artharthi. One who wants something from God to become better. And another is which very much afflicted and miserable and wants to remove that misery. Both are devotees of God. He says all are great. So all has to be respected, like that he said. Artho, Jigyasu, Artharthi, Jnani cha Bhartarsava. So all these are the devotees of God. So when we approach God, even for asking something, that is the first and very good step in approaching God. That will lead us. Ultimate aim is to have love of God. So that will lead us to have the love of God. Worship needs a certain qualification, certain training. Without that, we will be doing mechanical worship. And the training is to have grown a love for God. That's why when Divine Mother is worshipped in temples in India, and Mother Kali is worshipped, the priest has to be initiated in Kali Mantra. When Sri Ramakrishna was appointed as a worshipper of Divine Mother, he had to take initiation from Kenaram Bhattacharya, the mantra, the name of Kali. So that is one thing that leads to the purity of heart. So those training are for the purity of heart. Otherwise, we'll be doing worship every day, still not progressing an inch in spirituality. That's when it's called nearer to church and farther from God. You have not been trained. You have not tried to grow that love for God. There is nothing that connects you with God. You come, do mechanically the things, your mind is always in something else other than the deity, and you worship, you mutter the mantras that you have memorized without feeling any connection with the Lord. So, though in the temple, though doing worship of the God, being very close and very respected by others, you really don't proceed an inch in spirituality or in love of God. Everything becomes futile for you, just mechanical. So the training is needed. So what are the training needed? Training is you have to have feeling of closeness. Prahlada in the Bhagavatam described that worship of God has 9 components. What are the 9 components for spiritual progress? Sravanam, Kirtan. How can we come closer to God? It's got 9 things. Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. These 9 things. One is Sravanam. You have to hear about the glory of God. Reading through the books, listening through the talks, talking with others, all that comes under Sravanam. You want to talk and be with the God. What Sri Ramakrishna did, what Sri Krishna did, what Jesus went through in life, all this is Sravanam. You listen to that. That is one of the steps of having spiritual progress according to Bhakti that Prahlada told, one of the greatest bhaktas in the mythology. Kirtanam. Then you sing, chant, repeat God's name. That is Kirtanam. Smaranam. Remember. Always keep your mind either in the form of God or try to feel the presence of God, of your deity. Smaranam. Pada Sevanam. Service Pada is the object that is connected with God when we feed. So Pada Sevanam can be described as serving the devotees of God. That is also part which makes us closer to God. Archanam. Then comes the worship, formal worship of God. Then Vandanam. Then saluting God. That is also very important. Coming to God and touching the ground in front of God. Ground touching through head has such a good psychological effect on us, making us humble. We tend to become very egoistic without having any qualities even. Just we imagine we have some qualities which perhaps we don't have, and we don't know to bow down our head. Touching the ground in front of God makes us humble, makes us feel that I am not as great as I have always been thinking. So it is a very good spiritual practice. In Buddhistic tradition, in Hindu tradition, in every tradition. Islam, Christianity, everywhere. Christianity you kneel down, in Islam you touch the ground. In Hindus do pranam. So Vandanam, that's what Prahlada said. It is an essential component of spiritual practice for a bhakta. Vandanam. Then Dasyam. Dasyam is the attitude of a servant. Servant is, it is a dasyam, but it can be described as doing everything for the sake of God. You come and listen, the glory of God, God will be pleased. I come and speak, God will be pleased. Devotee, the volunteer comes and cooks at home and brings food, God will be pleased. Everything is the pleasing of God. That is the attitude of a servant. I want to please God. That is one of the 9 components. Sakhyam. Then you have to make God as your friend, eternal companion. God is always with me. He is for me. He will never forsake me. That faith will come through our getting closer and closer to God with all these practices. Hearing Him, talking about Him, singing His glory, doing worship to Him, all will make our thrust focus towards God. These all can be described like these 9 things can be summarized as the first thing of the worship is sacrifice. So, what is sacrifice? Sacrifice is not something you just give up your body or kill another animal. Sometimes sacrifice, we have that balidanam in the sacrifice. No, sacrifice is giving. When you give, it is sacrifice. But simple giving is not sacrifice. Sacrifice has two components. One is, it is giving without any thought of return, any expectation. You just give. When you offer flower to God and expect God will give you the same weight of gold, then it is not sacrifice. You just offer that thing to please God. And what do you want? Why do you want to please God? I want to please God. If God is pleased, that is my joy. Nothing more I want than that. You offer flowers. You offer candle. You go to the church and light candle. What did happen? Jesus, the altar is quite far away, but you feel that you are striking the light and lighting the candle for the worship of God. Jesus will be pleased. Or whatever your deity will be pleased. You go to church, if you are a Bhakta of Kali, you think, if I light candle to Jesus, Mother Kali will be pleased. My deity, my Ishta, Mother Kali is everywhere, who is being worshipped here as Jesus. She will be pleased if I offer this candle, I worship Jesus the way that Jesus is worshipped by the Christian, by his followers. Mother Kali will be pleased. So that way it becomes sacrifice. Another component of sacrifice is self-denial. You have to lose something in sacrifice. They say that if you are a millionaire and you give $10 bill, it is not a sacrifice. If you earn, say, $1,000 per month and you donate $50, then it is sacrifice. Sacrifice has to lead to self-denial. Or it is making the loss of ego. Real sacrifice will have the loss of ego. I become more humble. My ego becomes grounded. So that is the aim of sacrifice. So in sacrifice we offer something without any expectation of return, and also we want our ego to be reduced. Some loss of ego is there, then it is sacrifice. It is not that what we offer it matters, but how we offer that matters. With what attitude we offer that matters. God doesn't want any riches. He doesn't want you to light $10 candle. If you don't have money, you go to a church, just pray to Lord, I don't have that much money, I have to look after my family and I don't have so much. Please forgive me. God will be pleased than a person millionaire coming and lighting 10 candles without any devotion to God. God will be pleased more. Sri Krishna says in the Gita, for our worship, you see, we decorate Divine Mother with, sometimes you'll find golden ornaments given, golden crown given. Those are all to glorify ourselves. Mother is not meant to be glorified with those riches and diamonds and those things. Because we feel those things are important, precious, we feel that Mother will also be very happy wearing those. Mother, what will she care? When there was theft in Vishnu temple in Dakshineshwar, Mathur Babu took Sri Ramakrishna and said, Father, Mother, this God wouldn't protect themselves. All their ornaments was stolen by the thief. Sri Ramakrishna said, what are you talking about? Why will God care about those few gold necklace we have put on the God's neck and some crowns on God's head? To God the whole universe belongs. Whole mind, ours are His, this whole earth is His, whole planets are His, whole universe is His. What does He care for a gold necklace and a gold crown? Why should we worry that someone is taking away? Because for you it is very important, that's why you say that God had to protect that. So when we decorate God with ornaments, precious stones, precious metals, it is for our glory. We feel that is not bad. That makes us feel, yes, that is glorious. The God looks more better in our eyes as we find a person decorated with ornaments. Oh, you look so good today. Because we feel that is important. For God it's not important. What God wants? God wants mostly the love of the heart. And if He wants to offer Him something external, you want to feel His presence and want to offer, Then you offer, God says to Krishna in the Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Tvayam. Give me the simplest thing. Bring water from the pure, clean water from the river or from the faucet. Tvayam. A leaf from outside, any leaf. There are some sacred leaves like Tulsi for Krishna or Bilva for Shiva. But you can offer any leaf, any plant product, clean, neat, with the love. You offer, God said, I take that, I accept that. He doesn't say Tulsi Patra, he says Patram. Pushpam, everywhere flower grows. In your garden, the garden looks so beautiful. One of the nice flowers from back of the tree, you pluck and give it on Lord. Oh, it feels so good. Plucking the flowers from the garden to offer to the deity has some rules. Swami Brahmananda used to say, when you go to the garden, don't pluck those flowers which are in front and make the garden beautiful. But pluck the flowers that are hidden behind. Because garden has also to look beautiful. It is a worship of the Virat. Sri Ramakrishna once went to pluck some flowers to offer to Mother Kali. He went there, saw flowers, trees in flowers. He couldn't pluck. He said, I saw this like the bouquet for worship of the divine, of the Virat, of the universal God. So the plants that produce flower in the garden decorate the garden. And garden is like the worship of the Virat. Not God in the temple, in the room, in the shrine, in the corner of the room, but God outside. The whole universe is the God. So don't make that naked the flower. So pluck the flower from behind or the hidden flower and worship that. Anything God becomes happy. Phalam, any fruits, one or more or all of these, God will be pleased. But all has to be put and mixed and saturated with the love of your God, for God. Yes, I am offering that to God. Then the sacrifice earlier used to mean yajna. Yajna means offering something to God. In Vedic times, the sacrifice was the offering of clarified butter or ghee and some grains that were produced, that were offered to fire, and fire is supposed to take it to God. So that was the sacrifice. Later on, the sacrifice in Manusmriti and Taittiriya Samhita, it said, sacrifice not only the Vedic ritualistics will do, but every householder has to do sacrifice. And not one type of sacrifice, but they have to do 5 types of sacrifice. And he said, Pancha Mahayajna, great sacrifice to be done by every householder. And that is the duty of every householder, that Manu said. What are those sacrifices? One of the sacrifices called Deva Yajna, sacrifice to God. Offer something to God. That is Deva Yajna. Another is Rishi Yajna, sacrifice to the rishis, those who brought the scriptures to you. Read from the scriptures, try to follow that, adore that, do japam. That is Rishi Yajna. Then Nri Yajna, treat other human beings. So it is said, treat your guests as God, but treat all human beings lovingly. That is Nri Yajna. Then there is Bhuta Yajna, Rishi Yajna. Then there is Pitri Yajna. Pitri Yajna is the ritualistic worship of our forefathers who have passed away. Give them some food or worship them with water, or just remember them, remember the good qualities, try to follow the teachings. That becomes Pitri Yajna. Don't forget your ancestors in whose lineage you are born, and you have to carry their tradition. All their good tradition should be carried by you. They say Ramachandra was carrying the tradition of Raghu Vamsha. He was born in the clan of Raghus. And what is the tradition he followed? One thing he brought home. He said, Raghukula Riti Sada Chali Ai Prana Jai Varu Vachana Na Jai. When Bharata said to Rama, our father has passed away. And now we need king. Please come back. Your father didn't ask you to go to the forest. Your stepmother had something desired. So you are not bound to go to the forest. He had promised that he will give, but he never said that yes, I accept this. So why do you take this? To go to the forest. Come back. The whole country needs you as king. Then Ramachandra said, it had been our tradition of the ancestors that we may give up our life, but won't give our words. My father had given words to his wife, my stepmother, Pekei, that he will give her 2 boons, whatever she asked. And this one she had asked, that I should go to forest for 14 years. That I will carry on. This is the tradition of my clan, of my family, of my ancestors. Never in my ancestry has anyone deviated from truth, has anyone deviated from keeping the word. I will copy it, I will carry it on, maybe I will perish in the forest. Prana jayi varuvachana jayi. That is Pitri Yajna. Whatever our father did anything, or our grandfather did anything good, we need to cultivate and keep that. Pitri Yajna. And last is Bhuta Yajna. All this called Pancha Mahayajna. Bhuta is taking care of animals and plants of our environment. Love them, feed them. That has been the tradition. So this is the 5 types of yajnas. That also is called is a type of sacrifice. But the greatest sacrifice the spiritual aspirant needs to do is the sacrifice of selfishness, sacrifice of ego, sacrifice of I. Always saying, I have said this, I have done this, I want this. This I has to be reduced. Sri Ramakrishna used to teach us. He didn't use the word I. He used to say, from this place to this place, like that he used to say. Just by not using I, you curtail that ego sense in you. So Sri Ramakrishna did that to show us he didn't have ego. If he had said, worship me, as Krishna said in the Gita, worship me, think of me, meditate on me, it was not out of ego. Sri Krishna was not egoistic. It was out of his identification with the Supreme Self. Where is the ego in Supreme Self? When the Supreme Self becomes smaller, then it is called ego. When we dissociate from the whole of the world, separate from the whole of the world, and identify ourselves with this small being, with this body and mind complex, then it is ego. When we identify with the whole universe, it is not ego. Ego becomes reality, becomes smaller. And that small thing is very small thing, and you want to inflate it a little. Inflated ego. What quality you don't have, you feel you have that quality. What looks you don't have, you feel you have that look. That becomes ego. So, ego has to be reduced. There should be the sacrifice of the ego is real sacrifice. What is the way to get rid of ego? The best way is surrender to the will of God. This ego creates a lot of problems. It's not just that, oh, I have done that, I will achieve this. It's not that simple thing, you are just egoistic and proud person. But that brings a lot of suffering in life, a lot of misery in life. You are always face troubles in life because of ego. And to get rid of ego and to have peace and joy is surrendering to the will of God. Whatever comes, it has come by the will of God. Accept whatever comes. We have full faith in God that He will grant you everything. The next thing in worship is adoration. Adoration is expressed through rituals. Rituals consists of worship according to the mantras, and also the stuti or the praise of God. You sing the praise of God, that is also adoration. Sing hymns, kirtan, singing the name of God, that is also adoring God. So adoration is, in fact, it's love of God with reverence. It's called adoration. The next thing in the devotion, cultivating devotion or worshipping God is sacredness. Everything connected with worship is sacred, that feeling. That what I am worshipping and whom I am worshipping is all sacred. So that's why in worship you'll often find that everything is done with the mantras. Everything has a presiding deity according to Hindus. So the bell that you ring has to be worshipped. There is some God. So that has to be invoked in the bell. The gong, that has to be worshipped. Material thing. The water you worship, that has some mantra and God is there. God has to be worshipped. Everything has the presiding deity and everything has to be associated with the sacredness. Not only the object of worship, like bell and the gong and the flower, everything needs to be worshipped and sanctified and made sacred. Even your body has to be made pure. So that's why when you see the people priest worshipping, you find them touching the hand and feet and head and the other parts of the body with hand and with muttering of mantra. That is to make the body sacred so that it worships God. They say that God can be worshipped only when you become God. Devo bhutva devam yajet. So we have to worship God. To worship God, we have to make ourselves pure. We have to feel that we have that part of the God in you. That's why there is the Manasa Puja, Bhuta Shuddhi, whatever impurity in you, you want to burn that, clear of that, you feel yourself purified in body and mind, then only you are fit to offer all flowers and waters and whatever food that is there, that is purified. So Devo Bhutva Devam Yajet. And whom to worship? We have to worship, we must have a chosen deity. We need one form of God. What God should we choose? What is my chosen deity? Whether Jesus or Vishnu or Shiva or Durga or Kali, who is my deity? Either your Guru will tell, or you will find some inclination. People find Krishna, they love Krishna. Some other are there who find Mother Kali, they love very much. There are people who find Jesus is very dear to me, like that. How did it happen? Those who have their chosen deity must have some quality of that deity. Some quality of that deity. Like one who is worships Divine Mother has to be able to accept whatever is there in the world. Without that acceptance, how will you worship Divine Mother, who is the mother of all? If you have so much of I and mine and good and bad, it is very difficult for you to worship Divine Mother. Divine Mother includes everything. Swami Vivekananda said, worship is very difficult. How will you worship Divine Mother? In Puja Mantra it is said, even Indra, the Lord of God, couldn't worship you, Mother. I am the mortal being and very little intellect, not very pure in heart, but I venture to worship you. Without your grace, my worship will not be completed. Even Indra could not worship you. So I want your grace. Please accept whatever I have offered. Swami Vivekananda said, worshipping Divine Mother is like a continuous battle. To become pure yourself, every moment you have to struggle. And in the struggle to make ourselves better, we often fail. I want to not hate another person because I want to mother. That person is evil, that person is bad. Often those thoughts comes and it troubles me. I don't want to get angry, I don't want to get greedy. But greed is there, fear is there, hatred is there. So how to worship Divine Mother? To worship her, constant in struggle. And always failure. Swami Vivekananda said, don't mind failures. Go on having the struggle. Go on attempting to conquer your lower nature. And you will succeed. Ujatar, Shangram Apar, Sada Parajay, Tahana Doratma. Churna Hok, Shartha Sadhama. Your shartha, your selfishness, your greed, let those be grounded and pulverized. Let them go. And sadha, a desire for name and fame, for greatness, for adoration, for praise, that those all will vanish, eradicated. And man, a feeling of honor, let that go. When you can be freed from selfishness, desires, and name and fame, then only Churnahok Shartha Sadhaman, Hridaya Shashan, your heart becomes like the cremation ground. All these things, your weaknesses have all been burned there. And where the Divine Mother dwells, according to Shakti Puja, Divine Mother, Mother Kali, a form of Mother Durga, she dwells in cremation ground. That is the symbol of Mother Kali dwelling in the cremation ground. Cremation ground is not where the people's body are burned, corpses are burned, dead bodies are burned, but the cremation ground is the heart, where all weaknesses, all human weaknesses have been burned, and these have become purified, and there Nachukta Hatishyama. And their mother will dance. When you have become purified, your mother will dance. You will be always with Divine Mother. And when we are get rid of all our impurities, including ego, and all connected with ego, the desires, the separating, trying to always find good and bad, when we are freed from that, then the Mother will come. And that will be the real worship of Divine Mother.